If you're waking up in the Northeast, you might want to take a look out your window. It has snowed quite a bit overnight, as you may already know. Snow's piling up from Maryland to Massachusetts, and a state of emergency has been declared in several states along the East Coast as people head out the door for their morning commute. The storm already created major travel disruption in the Tennessee Valley yesterday, where some areas saw snowfall totals topping 8 inches. More than 60 million people are under winter weather alerts this morning, as the snow could get as high as a foot in some areas. We've got team coverage this morning. We'll, of course, check in with our Bill Cairns. But we're going to start with Juliana Valencia, who's live on the ground in Washington, D.C. for us this morning to tell us what she's seeing there. Juliana, good morning. So what is the situation like on the ground? I see some snow piled up behind you. You look pretty warm. You're dressed right for sure, but tell us what you're seeing.
Definitely dressed right, and good morning, Savannah. Good to be with you. We are in Northwest Washington, about 20 minutes from the National Mall, and I'll tell you, this was a quick-moving storm. About 3:30 this morning, though, it was a consistent downfall of light, fluffy snow. It was just coming down the streets of Washington. We're quiet, and it was just this beautiful blanket of snow. But now, for the morning commuters, it is a slushy mess. I mean, they pre-treated the roads overnight, so those look much better. The side roads are what people are going to have to worry about. But, you know, for your Friday, the first week of the year, people are just going to have to bundle up and bear with it, Savannah.
Thank you so much, Juliana, for the latest in Washington, D.C. I'll come back to you in just a moment. But now we're also going to check in with Jen Maxfield. She's live on the ground in New Jersey. I think we've got her. Jen, good morning. So we know the tri-state area is getting the worst of this right now. I can attest to that from my morning commute. Just a few hours ago, it was a little slippery on the roads out there. What's it looking like there in New Jersey?
Well, look, we've been here in Hazlet, New Jersey. This is right near the Jersey Shore. We've been here since about 3 in the morning. The snow's been falling steadily. In fact, what you're seeing right now is more like a break in the action, because we were in a really heavy band of snow just about an hour ago. But take a look down here. This is a retaining wall. We've been showing this to our viewers all morning. It's completely covered in snow right now. We just measured it a few minutes ago. That is a 5-inch accumulation and still coming down. We're here at a Wawa, New Jersey's favorite convenience store, where people are coming to get hot coffee this morning. The Wawa's right off Route 36 North here. You can see the drivers taking it easy, but the traffic is moving on Route 36. In some cases, only one lane open. It's really a race between the plow truck drivers and the snowflakes, which are still falling steadily here, Savannah.
All right. And Juliana, tell us, what are the road conditions like? I know in the tri-state area, as I just mentioned, my own experience getting in this morning, it was a little crazy on the road out there. It looks like actually in New Jersey, they might be worse, just from what I can see over both your shoulders. But Juliana, what are you seeing?
I would agree with you, Savannah. So it's much different than the snowstorm we had on Monday, because on Monday, since it started with rain, they couldn't pre-treat the roads. But today, since the temperatures were colder and there was no rain in this area, they were able to pre-treat the roads, and those main roads like the one behind me you see here, it is basically clear. It's those side roads that were pre-treated that people have to worry about. Washington got about 3 inches this morning. Again, it was more of that light, fluffy snow. So if the kiddos, they want to go out and maybe sled today, they got to do it in the next couple of hours, because this snow is not going to stick around. It's going to turn into more of that wet mess in maybe just a couple of hours, Savannah.
Oh, that'll be lovely. Hey, Jen, quickly, just tell me, how are the roads there where you are? How is it going to be for people on their morning commute in the tri-state area?
Definitely a challenge, because, look, it's not just the matter of racing against the snowflakes. It's also a matter of staffing. So many of these Department of Public Works right now have staffing challenges with people out due to COVID infections or COVID exposure. So that's an issue as well. We did speak with some snowplow operators this morning who tell us they've been up all night. They've been clearing the roads. The roads were brined in order to prep them, to get them not so slippery. There were major issues here in New Jersey earlier this week. On Wednesday, we had a layer of ice during the morning commute, and certainly nobody wants a repeat of that situation where we saw so many accidents. But again, we are on a state highway here, Route 36, a road that a lot of people here in the shore towns travel. to go north, to go to work in New York City or points north. And we can see the traffic is moving well there this morning. We know the road crews are working as fast as they can to get the roads clear in New Jersey for people who do have to go to work this morning like we do, Savannah.
Yeah, exactly. Like we already did, actually, but for a lot of people. All right. Thank you both for being up in the cold, out there in the cold and up early with us. Good to see you both. Thanks so much. Now let's go to Bill Cairns, of course, to talk about what's going to happen over the next few hours in the Northeast, where this is headed next, how bad it could get. I'm hearing maybe even up to 10 inches in the city. Is that right, Bill?
That's pushing it. I don't think we'll get there. Maybe 5 or 6 in a few spots.
Okay.
But Savannah, just to the north of New York City, it's been eye-opening, impressive. This storm has been very, very efficient at producing snowflakes that accumulate quickly. It's called like a powdery snow or a fluffy snow. And we talk about snow ratios. Typically, like 1 inch of rain would equal like a foot of snow. This is going to be like 20 inches of snow to like 1 inch of liquid rain. So we call that the rain to snow ratio or liquid to snow ratio. And with this storm, it's extremely fluffy. It's like Alaska-like. Even yesterday in Nashville, Tennessee, we had 6 inches of snow. In Lexington, Kentucky, we had 10 inches of snow. So these totals were like, I mean, in Nashville, it was the biggest snowstorm that they had in 3 years. You have to go back to 2018. And in Lexington, Kentucky, 10 inches of snow does not happen that often. And that's why traffic was just at a standstill and blocked, like you see there. It wasn't an overnight situation like they had in Virginia earlier this week, but for a couple hours, traffic was at a standstill on a lot of the major highways through the state. And overnight in even West Virginia, we picked up 13 inches of snow in snowshoes. So let's get to what we're dealing with right now. If you're heading out the door, the snow is over in D.C. It is ending in Philadelphia, but in southern New England, it is difficult. I just heard about a tractor trailer on I-84 that tipped over. The highway is blocked in one direction. And the roads in I-95, New Haven's had up to 10 inches of snow overnight. Long Island is still snowing pretty hard. So as expected, the worst of the morning commute is southern New England. Philadelphia, the snow looks like it just ended for you. In New York City, you'll have to wait like another hour. So Philadelphia, your snow is over with. New York, maybe another inch. Hartford, 1 or 2. But the heavy snow will still come down this morning from Providence to Boston northwards. So in Philadelphia, snow ending right now. Storm total around 3 to 5. The snow will be ending in New York City as we go throughout the next hour or two. Storm totals 4 to 6. The bigger totals, Savannah, definitely in Connecticut. As I mentioned, in areas of southern Connecticut and eastern Connecticut, I've already heard reports of up to a foot of fluffy snow. Savannah, this isn't the type of snow I'll complain about shoveling. I'm even tempted to use the leaf blower in this snow because it will just...
Okay, I didn't grow up in snow, so I didn't even know that was a thing that people did. I was going to ask you, though, Bill,
yes.
Are you ready to begin your complaints about shoveling? Not yet, it sounds like.
No, I think my kid's school was canceled, and my son is already asking me how much I'm going to pay him to shovel our driveway. We're in negotiations.
Hey, you don't like to do it? Give him a job. Maybe it works out. Also, that used to make me so jealous growing up in San Diego. Snow days from school. I was like, what? All right, Bill, thanks so much. We'll check in with you in a bit. All right, now we'll continue our coverage of that storm this morning, of course, but we turn now to a startling milestone in the COVID pandemic. Global cases surpass 300 million as the Omicron variant continues to sweep across borders. And while Omicron's driving cases to unprecedented levels, experts do say there's hope because death rates with this variant have remained relatively low, unlike with the previously dominant Delta strain. But health officials are still urging everyone to get their booster shots. The CDC issued new recommendations saying the COVID vaccine series is not complete without that additional dose. The decision comes as data continues to suggest the initial vaccine doses are less effective against the Omicron variant. Let's now bring in our friend, someone you'll recognize, NBC News medical contributor, Dr. Kavita Patel, for more on all this. Dr. Patel, great to see you. Good morning. So I want to start right there with what I just said about vaccines, because I think some people might think, wait a minute, what did she just say? And what's the latest with dosing? And what makes me fully vaccinated? So let's just start there. What is this new guideline and what does it mean? Because there was this important distinction before between your first 2 doses of an mRNA vaccine, so Pfizer or Moderna. That second dose wasn't a booster. It was just part of your vaccine. Is that what's now happening with that third dose? And then in a minute, we'll get to what's going on with J&J.
Yeah, that's really just to make it a little more simple, and it's hard with sometimes with some of this language. You're absolutely right. Those original doses, that's what kind of constitutes the definition, somewhat legal almost, of fully vaccinated. That's why you're hearing that term used a lot. But to really be up to date with your vaccines, which is really what we care about as people to prevent disease, you really do need that third shot, that booster dose, as we're calling it. That's for the mRNA. For Johnson & Johnson, I know, Savannah, we've talked about this. It's a little different because 2 shots of Johnson & Johnson is still what you really need to be considered fully vaccinated, which leaves a lingering question for Johnson & Johnson recipients that I think everyone should ask. Do I need a third shot of something? So far, the data is mixed, but I've even been recommending that patients ask to see if they need a third shot, especially with Omicron.
You know what that sounds like to me, Dr. Patel? That sounds like a phone call between you and I a little bit later as a J&J recipient initially. So, okay, so then what does this mean, though, for people who are thinking, hey, I'm fully vaccinated, but maybe they haven't been boosted yet? So, for example, there are certain places with these vaccine mandates in place. Here in New York City, I can't go into a restaurant without showing a card that on mine had just had 1 dose of J&J and then has my booster on it. But, you know, that says you're fully vaccinated. Is fully vaccinated now 3 doses? Are you not going to go into a restaurant without having that, what was a booster, which is now just part of the vaccine?
No, and that's why I think it's important to kind of parse out that fully vaccinated for the purposes of cards, transport, travel, even international and domestic travel where you need it, is really still that original series. I really do think of it as more of a legal definition. Think of it in a similar way of kind of the bare minimum, but then to be, quote, up to date, especially with the most protection, that's what really includes those third doses. And we've already got countries like Israel that are offering 4th doses. So this is not a question of these vaccines are not working. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, when will it end? This is really a question of what do we need to do to protect against disease? Omicron has really challenged all of that, but vaccines are still protecting against disease. These breakthrough infections, if you're boosted, these breakthrough infections look like a sore throat. If you've just had this original series, you look a little sicker. If you've been unvaccinated, you're likely going to end up in the hospital if you don't have the protection.
All right. Great information there. It's so confusing, I think, for a lot of people, especially as people just hear, OK, I need another shot. I need another shot. This is such good information to help people kind of understand why and exactly what's happening here. Dr. Patel, as always, thank you so much. Great to see you.
Take care.
Now let's talk through vaccine mandates, because that fight is actually headed to the nation's highest court. The Supreme Court will hear arguments over President Biden's vaccine mandates for certain businesses and medical facilities. Those policies affect nearly 100 million workers. NBC News national security correspondent Ken Dilanian is following today's arguments for us. Ken, good morning. So the Supreme Court's actually going to review 2 challenges to President Biden's vaccine policies. So first, just walk us through who's challenging these policies, why, and what does it mean we're actually going to see today?
Yeah, good morning, Savannah. One case is against the Occupational Health and Safety Administration, OSHA, and that's the bigger of these 2 cases because that's a sweeping rule that's imposed on every business with more than 100 employees, requiring every employee to be vaccinated, and if they don't, they have to have weekly testing. That's opposed by a number of small business groups. And then there's another rule imposing a vaccine mandate on healthcare workers, 22 million healthcare workers. And, you know, Savannah, sometimes the Supreme Court is deciding on the constitutionality of laws before them. In this case, it's really about the statute. It's really a question of whether the federal government has the authority to impose these rules. The lower courts have been mixed on this. Now we're going to go to the Supreme Court. And by the way, Savannah, we're going to go to a Supreme Court that is closed for the safety of its employees to the public because of COVID. And every justice is vaccinated and boosted.
Well, there you have it, especially as we talk about something like this. Now, Ken, have lower courts responded to these challenges at all before? Have we had any type of indication what's happened there?
Yes, and it's been mixed. So on the bigger OSHA mandate, one circuit, the Fifth Circuit in New Orleans, put a stay on that and blocked it and said it was not appropriate. And then another appeals court said that it was okay. And so that's why it's before the Supremes. They have to decide here. And, you know, this is a classic clash of interests here because we have a very big public health interest, right, in getting everyone vaccinated. But what these small businesses say is that, look, if I impose this mandate, I'm going to lose 20 to 30% of my employees. We already have a labor shortage and a supply chain shortage, so it could cause a lot of disruption. And Amtrak, for example, which is under a different mandate, had to suspend their vaccine mandate because they were going to have to do service cuts if they didn't, Savannah.
Wow, so much going on with this vaccine and these mandates. And Ken, quickly, when can we expect a decision here from the Supreme Court?
Probably towards the end of the term in a few months, Savannah.
All right, awesome. Ken, as always, great to see you. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Now on Capitol Hill, the past 24 hours have been filled with vigils, tributes, and remembrance of the insurrection last year on January 6th. Last night on the Capitol steps, members of Congress held a candlelight vigil to mark the one-year anniversary of the Capitol Hill riot. NBC Nightly News anchor Lester Holt sat down with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi as she looked back on that day.
President no one had a clearer view of the stakes that day than House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. I spoke with her at the Capitol. President Biden was here in the Capitol, delivered a blistering takedown of his predecessor, and also offered a vigorous defense of democracy. Given the environment we're in right now, where there are people still trying to delegitimize the investigation, diminish the extent of what happened here, do you wish that speech had come sooner?
It's what our country needed right now. And I'm very proud of the president's speech. It was forceful, truthful, and a wake-up call to some in our country of how close we came to catastrophe for our democracy that day in a way that was unprecedented.
The way he went after Donald Trump, however, do you think that fuels the conversation among many Republicans that there's something political about the observances? Mitch McConnell suggested that it's being used for political gain.
Well, that's for him to say. The fact is, there was an assault on our democracy instigated by the then President of the United States, an incitement of an insurrection on the Capitol, and that's just something that Mitch McConnell or anybody else cannot whitewash.
I want you to take me into that day, if you will. We all remember you being quickly escorted off the podium. I've heard you talk about it before. You didn't want to go.
No.
Do you think now, though, knowing what you know, do you think about what would have happened had you stayed?
Well, the security was very definite. And when they pulled me down from the podium, I said, don't worry about it. They said, no, you must go. You must go. And so you don't even have a conversation. You want to do your job, they have to do their job. The visuals of what was happening outside the Capitol, now inside the Capitol, it breaks your heart. It breaks your heart. It's as if somebody in the White House dropped a bomb on the Congress of the United States.
There were people in this Capitol that day who were viewing you as an enemy, to be captured, to be humiliated. One of them said, was looking for you to shoot her in her frigging brain.
Yeah.
They desecrated your office. They left your staffers, fearing for their lives. Yeah. Have you found a way to put that in perspective, to reconcile it a year later?
Well, I've been one of their targets for a long time, and I have security to protect me. My concern was really for the other members and for the staff. They can destroy things in the Speaker's office. That's wrong, but, that can be repaired. But the trauma that they foisted on the idealistic people who come to the Capitol to work, the institutional staffers, have nothing to do with Democrats and Republicans, only the Congress, those who had to clean up behind these people with their defecation of words and poo on the floor of the Capitol while they were called names that are totally unacceptable.
Speaker Pelosi taking me through the Capitol, showing me where her staff was hiding.
The rioters, they banged down one of the doors. The staff was in there under the table in the dark. They couldn't speak for like almost 3 hours.
And they're obviously hearing everything because it's taking place right here.
Yeah, where is she? Would come to get her and all that stuff. And maybe they thought I was in there. I don't know.
Then we go inside her office.
Where you saw them sitting at the desk and taking the mail and all that was here. You know, that's where that thug was sitting. In the desk.
What did you think when you saw that picture?
Well, it was a manifestation of Donald Trump. Complete disrespect.
I asked her about the lasting impact. What has been lost that you fear can't be regained?
I think everything be regained. America is an optimistic country. The resilience of our democracy can withstand even the former president of the United States.
And I asked about the House committee investigating January 6th. It's composed of virtually all Democrats, Republicans pulling out after Pelosi rejected 2 of their selections. So she picked 2 Republicans, both fierce critics of former President Trump. Many Republicans will say that the process was not fair, that there were Republicans who were rejected as potential members of the committee.
They were not. Well, the Speaker has the right to make the appointments.
But there are individuals they wanted on that committee who
And we
were
said
rejected.
that most of them could come. 2 we could not because they were suspect in terms of their involvement in January 6th. They can whine all they want, but they walked away from the opportunity to having their full complement of members on the committee. Now I ask all members to rise for a moment of silence.
You've been very vocal in the past about praying for your adversaries.
I always do, and I always pray for them that they will open their hearts to God's blessings to do what is right. But I say to the Republicans, take back your party. This is not who you are. You're the grand old party. It's done so much for America, had great leadership for our country. This is a sad thing for the country that the Republican Party would have melted down to a cult.
Our thanks to Lester Holt for that exclusive interview.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.